Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the ReOpening Los Nietos School District Virtual Town Hall. Allow me to introduce our District Superintendent, Mr. Jonathan Vasquez, for welcoming remarks.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. During the summer break, the district office staff has been working nonstop with a task force of over 30 district stakeholders to figure out how best to reopen our schools safely and successfully. Tonight, we'd like to share with you the steps we are taking in order to get our students safely back into their classrooms. Before we begin, I want to thank the outstanding teachers, classified staff, administrators, and our Board of Education for working so well together to meet the challenges that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused. With teamwork and collaboration, we as a district can continue to create and foster an environment that provides quality educational opportunities for our students, whether it be in the classroom or at home. No matter the setting, I'm confident that we have a strong and proactive team here at Los Nietos that are dedicated to help our students thrive when school begins on August 13th. I would now like to introduce Maritza Nieves, President of Los Nietos School District Board of Education, to say a few words. Maritza?
Thank you, Jonathan. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Maritza Nieves. I'm the president of the Board of Education for Los Nietos School District. First of all, I want to thank our district staff for hosting this evening's presentation. It is very important for our district parents and our community members to receive this critical information in regards to the upcoming school year. As the board, our goal is to ensure that each student in our district receives quality, equitable education. And tonight is a very important step towards achieving that goal. I also want to assure you that the health and safety of our students, teachers, and staff is one of our top priorities. Therefore, we've been working closely with our staff and key stakeholders to ensure a safe and successful school year for all. Lastly, I want to again thank you all for joining us and being part of this process. With your input, we look forward to working with you and creating a program for our students that continues to celebrate and foster student achievement. I hope tonight's presentation will clear up any questions or concerns you may have. Buenas tardes a todos y gracias por acompañarnos. Mi nombre es Maritza Nieves y soy la presidenta de la mesa directiva del Distrito Escolar de Los Nietos. La meta de la mesa directiva es asegurar que todos nuestros estudiantes reciban una educación de calidad y equitativa, y con su apoyo podemos lograr esa meta. Le quiero asegurar que la seguridad y la salud de los estudiantes, nuestros maestros y los empleados es nuestra prioridad. Por esto hemos estado trabajando con todos nuestros empleados para que este nuevo año escolar sea seguro y exitoso para todos. Gracias por ser parte de este proceso. Esperemos que esta presentación conteste sus preocupaciones y las preguntas que usted tenga. Empezamos.
Thank you, Mrs. Nieves. We would also like to share a special message from Mayor Pro Tem John Mora of the City of Santa Fe Springs, who couldn't be here with us today. Good evening, everyone. Congratulations to the Los Nietos School District on the reopening Los Nietos Town Hall. Back in February, I was invited to attend the Rediscover event at Los Nietos Middle School. I had not set foot on that campus in many years. I was incredibly impressed with the school, its facilities, faculty, and staff. Academics are at the forefront of the oldest operating school district in California. I want to assure students and families that you have an incredible superintendent and board of trustees that not only place the highest value on education, but also maintain high safety standards of students, families, faculty, and staff. We have never encountered a situation like this before, but our administrators and board have stepped up to this challenge to ensure an excellent education during a most unique time in our lives. Students of this school should be proud to attend this school, just as I am proud to have attended. I am a Los Nietos Middle School alumni. I am a Los Nietos Brave. I am very confident that your district will help guide you through these uncertain and confusing times. Your school is there for you. Students and families must also be there and be part so that we can get through this together. Once again, congratulations and be safe, everyone. At this time, we will move to the presentation portion of this event. We have Mr. Vasquez now present the district's plan for the 2020-2021 school year.
Before I get started, I just want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Mora for those very kind words. The Los Nietos School District has an excellent relationship with the local city councils in Santa Fe Springs as well as in Whittier. It's one of the ways that we can best support our communities and our families to maintain good relationships. We can bring programs and support to our kids and to our families. So again, thank you, Mayor Mora, for that. Before I get into my presentation, I want to share with you some statistics that I looked at in anticipation of this presentation to the Los Nietos community. If you can recall, back on March 6th, when we first started hearing about the corona pandemic, LA County Public Health Department declared a health crisis because there were 6 cases that were reported in all of Los Angeles County. As of yesterday, July 15th, there were 2,758 cases reported for one day. In all of LA County, there have been 140,000 cases countywide, 491 cases in the West Whittier, Los Nietos area, over 1,000 in the Whittier area. So we are not done with the pandemic. We are right in the middle, and it's getting worse. My hope tonight was to provide information about how we were going to bring our students back and do that in a safe manner. But I wanted to start off the presentation just to remind everyone, again, what you hear on the news every night, sometimes we get numb. We just hear the bad news and we maybe don't even listen to it. But in our own community of Los Nietos, 491 cases and 140,000 cases in Los Angeles County. LA County has been identified by the state as a county to watch because the cases are so high. So again, I provide that information to you as I go into my presentation. When we started meeting with our stakeholders and really looking and meeting with the board, we had to balance how do we provide an equitable quality education for all of our students on a blended kind of program where we provide possibly kids coming to school and also continuing the distance learning. Balance that with all of the requirements of the California Department of Education, the California Department of Public Health, the fiscal constraints of the state of California. The state of California has balanced their budget, but they went from a $50 billion deficit and things were cut. And so those are impacts that affect all school districts in Los Angeles County. In order to get a better understanding of what the needs are of our community, we did a lot of surveys. And I know sometimes we do surveys and you wonder, do people really look at them? And we do. I want to thank the staff and the parents and the students who provided the surveys. We had almost 1,000 parents respond back to us in our latest survey. And again, that really helped us understand what you wanted for your education for next year for your kids. And one of the things that the surveys overwhelmingly said is, we want our kids to come back to school. We want to get back to normal. The next highest response was, but only if it's safe. We don't want our kids to come back if it's not safe. So again, that's why I provided those statistics to you. So as we look at the next model, or next slide, excuse me, there's really 4 phases that Los Nietos has been looking at in order to bring our kids back to school. Phase 1 is a 100% distance learning model. That's kind of what we had at the end of last year from March and through June 3rd when school was over. Teachers provide their instruction through Zoom, through learning packets at home, distance learning. Phase 2, which I thought I was going to be talking about tonight, was our hybrid model when we start bringing our kids back to school, but also do a combination of virtual learning. One of the things we need to do with the hybrid model that I want to share with you, and I'll keep saying over and over tonight, is in order to bring kids back, we have to comply with the LA County Department of Public Health guidelines, as well as the California Department of Public Health guidelines, CDC guidelines. What are those guidelines? Well, number 1, if we bring kids back in the classroom, they have to be 6 feet apart to ensure maximum safe distancing. If we bring kids back to school, all kids need to wear masks. All adults need to wear masks or face coverings. For those students who have pre-existing health conditions or asthma, or maybe special needs students where wearing a mask may be difficult, there are ways that you could be exempt to that. But by and large, in order to ensure that we can bring kids back and have the adults be back in a safe environment, all adults, all students would need to wear a mask. And lastly, we would just need to ensure that we maintain proper health checks with all of our students and adults. What does that mean? Ensure that we take temperatures, that your temperature and your health is monitored every day prior to you coming to school. And there's different ways that we've been looking at to do that. But that is part of what the hybrid model is for the half day. Our phase 3 is doing more of a 2-day on, 2-day off in a full day hybrid model. In order to get the 6 feet of distancing, we need to split up a typical class. So for example, if we were to have a class of 32 kids, you know, we would split it in half, 16 and 16. So, cohort A would come 2 days a week, then cohort B would come 2 days a week, and one day would be all virtual. Teachers would still maintain contact with the kids all throughout the week, but that's what we need to do in order to have this hybrid model and maintain the social distancing. So a full day hybrid model would be our stage 3. Stage 4 is which we all want to get to, the Board of Education, myself, I know the principals want to see the kids, the teachers want to see the kids, and you want your kids to be seen. That's 100% getting our kids to school. What will that entail? That will entail a lot, and that's really going to entail ensuring that we work hand in hand with the Department of Public Health to ensure that LA County, Whittier, Los Nietos, West Whittier area has reached a threshold where it is safe to start bringing kids back. Okay. Those are the 4 stages that we were looking at. And again, just to cut to the chase, due to the rising cause of the pandemic and how it has not subsided at all, the Board of Education and I are recommending that we go to a 100% distance learning program starting August 13th that would go all the way through December. That would provide us an opportunity to see where we're at in terms of has the COVID-19 crisis stemmed a little bit? Have we flattened that curve that they talk about? Unfortunately, this is still kind of the first wave of COVID-19. We are still anticipating in the winter that there's another surge going to come. So unless we can flatten this curve in some way, shape, or fashion, it's going to continue to get worse, and bringing the kids back is going to be more of an impossibility. That's a lot of information that I've given you, but I want to give Maritza an opportunity to try and take what I said and translate it into Spanish if she can try. Thank you.
Para poder abrir nuestras escuelas y que los estudiantes regresen a clases. Para ser sinceros con ustedes, nosotros estamos siguiendo las directivas del Condado de Los Ángeles, del Departamento de Salud Pública. Y porque ahorita los casos de coronavirus están muy altos, todos los estudiantes estaremos en fase número 1. Eso significa que los estudiantes no volverán a clases, sino que será escuela virtual. Empezando en agosto, otra vez, eso será virtual. Todas las clases serán virtuales de agosto a final de diciembre. Ya a finales de diciembre, empezando el nuevo año, vamos a reevaluar nuestras fases y depende en los casos del coronavirus, puede que podamos regresar a un programa híbrido. Eso significa que serán la mitad de los estudiantes volverán a clases 2 días por semana y la otra mitad serían otros 2 días por semana, donde el quinto día sería todo virtual. Fase número 2 será donde los días serán mínimos y en la fase número 3 será la misma cosa, donde la mitad será mitad de estudiantes 2 días por semana, la otra mitad también los otros 2 días por semana, pero por días completo. Y como les recuerdo, todo esto depende en los casos del coronavirus y de las directivas del Departamento de Salud Pública del Condado de Los Ángeles. Y finalmente, esperamos que cuando pase la pandemia, podemos ya regresar a clases a tiempo completo. Eso será la fase número 4 y será ya la última etapa donde ojalá que antes de que termine el año escolar podamos ver otra vez a nuestros estudiantes en las clases y será por tiempo completo 5 días por semana.
Thank you, Maritza. And before I leave this slide, I just want to reiterate, some of you may think, is this a Los Nietos centric idea that we're going 100% distance learning? And no, it's not. Many of you have heard the Los Angeles Unified, one of the largest school districts in the state of California, as well as San Diego Unified, San Francisco Unified, Santa Ana Unified, as well as many other school districts in all of Los Angeles County have come to the same sobering conclusion that with the stem of COVID-19 cases rising, that going to 100% virtual learning model is the safest for both staff and students at this time. I anticipate by the end of this month, most school districts within Los Angeles County will be making the same announcement that I'm making tonight, that 100% distance learning model is what their boards of education are making the recommendation to do. So as we go to the next slide, again, I mentioned a little bit about what the hybrid model might look like, but here's just a visual. If you have a class of, say, 24 kids, we split the class up in half. 12 is cohort A. They come on Tuesday and Wednesday. Cohort B, the other 12 kids come on Thursday and Friday. And Monday, we maintain an all virtual day. That way, we can provide time for that Monday for teachers to plan, prepare their lessons, for professional development as we provide opportunities for teachers to learn the skills necessary to make the distance learning program a very enriching and rigorous program that you want, that they want to deliver. But again, if you recall, we did not anticipate doing a distance learning program in March, but we transitioned, we pivot to the credit of our teachers who worked extremely hard to do that. But now this is the new normal, unfortunately. So now we have to prepare. Now we have to say, if this is going to be the new normal, how do we structure that instructional day so the kids know what to expect, that the parents know what to expect, and that the teachers know to expect. Every day, again, I think I put out 2 to 3 announcements last year saying, we're going to extend the school year. We'll see. Well, I don't want to do that this year. And the Board of Education doesn't want to do that to the parents this year or to the teachers this year. That's why we're making the announcement that it's more important for you to plan, to say that, okay, from August through December, it's 100% virtual. Now it's our role and responsibility as the Los Nietos School District educators to inform parents. How's that going to work? Okay, so that's kind of how we're transitioning. I had intended to talk a little bit about the hybrid model today, but this entire week with the cases rising, everything changed. So next slide. As we look into what kind of the instructional model might be for our kids. Again, next slide, please. I mentioned a little bit about the protocols. All classrooms, again, cut in half, cohort A, cohort B. You have students who are 6 feet apart with their distances. You have students who are no longer going to have that close. I feel bad for the kindergarten students, so let's talk about that. If you are a kindergarten teacher, if you are your first year parent, we have to try and figure out a way, how can we do that virtually? That's the time that we have kids on the rug. That's the time that we read big books with them, that we use manipulatives, and every kid uses a lot of the same manipulatives that we teach them counting and reading and the alphabet. That can't happen this year because of the pandemic. So a lot of the small group instruction that we normally would want to do in our primary grades are now going to be done virtually, maybe in smaller Zoom lessons. So again, other issues and concerns that we'd want to do is ensure that there are appropriate protocols in place for the students and for the staff, that they know about how many times they need to wash their hands. And for the kids out there who are listening, I hope you are well. Practice washing your hands whenever you can. Make it a game. Wash your hands for 20 seconds, wear your mask. And as an adult, wearing a mask is difficult. I've had to wear a mask during the summer. It rubs on your face, and I can imagine how difficult it's going to be for kids and for little kids. But if you have an opportunity just to try and wear it to see how long can you wear a mask, because when you come back to school, and we want you to come back to school, by and large, all day, you're going to need to wear a mask. So again, instruction, recesses, PE, all of that is going to be changed once we get back to school. So as we go on to the next slide, here's kind of what a classroom is going to be looking like. You have basically everything cleared out of the classroom. You have desks that are 6 feet apart, and 6 feet apart is basically from the middle of one desk to the middle of the other desk. If you were to take a tape measure and measure from seat to seat, that's 6 feet across. So if you were to pull everything out, we could get 16 in, and that's how I came up with that number 60. That's the maximum amount that will fit in. And that's what a large classroom might look like, and maybe a first grade classroom. Not very engaging, not very attractive, but it's what is required to have a socially distant classroom that is the county Department of Public Health compliant. So I just wanted to share that with you a little bit for the kids. What might it look like to come back to school in your mask with the teacher? We may even have to pull out the teacher's desk. So when I was talking to teachers last week, I talked about we may have to get you mobile carts where you're teaching with your laptop and everything is in one spot, because in order to get 16 kids in a classroom, we would have to take out all the furniture. Libraries, classroom libraries, school libraries, places that normally you would go that we would love for you to go to learn how to read, you won't be able to use because you can't share those materials. So again, things will radically change once we bring our kids back to school. as we click on to the next slide. So what might be different, again, because it's going to be similar, but much different, much more rigorous. One of the things and the reasons why it's going to be much more rigorous is the state of California said, if you're going to do distance learning, every school district needs to come up with an accountability plan that says specifically how you're doing distance learning, ensuring that you have the appropriate instructional minutes that are required, and that you have a good attendance plan so that any student who is not on a Zoom 3 times out of the week is considered and targeted as, this is a kid you have to watch, we have to find, because we don't want to lose any of our kids. We don't want them not to have the ability to log on and get the help that they need. So for those parents who are concerned about, are we going to get the required instructional minutes that we would in the classroom? How do we know that, what if I don't have a hotspot and I can't log on? Will the district help? Yes, we are required to do that, and we are prepared to do that. So a lot of Zoom lessons. And one of the biggest changes in here, now that we have time to plan, is we need to do more engagement with the families. When we first started, many of our teachers, if not all our teachers, didn't know how to Zoom. We had to learn trial by error. And one of the things also that we learned is we need to engage with our families. We were focusing so much on our kids and trying to get content out that we didn't take the time necessary, because we didn't have the time to reach out to our parents to say, how can we help you? You're not an educator, you're not a Zoom master, but how can we help you? And so there are things that we are doing to look at providing services to parents that would help them learn how to be co-partners with us during this pandemic crisis. Next slide. To our parents with students with special needs, I anticipate having a meeting prior to the start of the school year similar to this. Myself, the director of special education, will be hosting it as we specifically go over what the programs will look like. With our moderate, severe students, with our mild to moderate classes, our most intensive kids that we need to get in the classroom as much as possible. And if they're going to be at home, how can we support families to provide them the support that they need, and take a look individually at all of their IEPs to ensure that, do they need something different to help them through the pandemic that maybe they weren't getting that was in their IEP. So we're in the process of looking at all of our students, how we schedule our IEPs. We'll probably need to do Zoom IEPs. We were hoping that if we waited till the fall, the pandemic would be over, wish upon wish, and we could start having face-to-face meetings, but that's not going to happen. That being said, we need to make plans to hold those IEPs with our parents and have discussions with you about how we can help support you. Again, if you have specific service providers, occupational therapy, speech therapists, adaptive PE, again, we'll all have to have meetings to discuss how are those services going to be delivered in this virtual setting, and we will do that. Next slide. As much as I've been talking about the instruction and the academics and making sure that it's rigorous and that we have students maintaining the instructional minutes that they need in order to be successful, if not equally important, if not more important, during a pandemic, is we have to make sure that we're doing all this within a healthy and a safe learning environment. And that's why, as much as we are following guidelines from the California Department of Education, the Los Angeles County Office of Education, we have to follow the guidelines from the Los Angeles County Public Health Department, because they are the ones guiding us to say, we are the health experts and we understand pandemics and how quickly things spread. You have to follow our guidelines. And that is what the governor of California said, follow your local health guidelines. So again, as we take a look at some of the things that we would be looking at doing, next slide, please. Sanitation protocols. We have numerous questions that came in. Mr. Vasquez, what are you going to do? How are you going to disinfect? Our teachers are asking that. What is it going to look like? So I want to assure you that we are looking at sanitation and disinfecting and cleaning a lot of different ways. Who knew that they were all different meanings, but they are. Cleaning is just what a custodian normally would do with regards to making sure we go to the classrooms, wipe things down, that we leave the classrooms at a normal way so they're ready for next year. Disinfecting is really what is going to be to kill the COVID-19 virus. Prior to the student dismissal, we purchased a lot of disinfectants that were on the CDC website as being able to kill the COVID-19 virus. We have implemented protocols and trained our custodians and our maintenance workers. They've all had to go through hours of training to say, this is the difference between cleaning, this is disinfecting. If you're going to handle disinfectants, you have to wear PPE equipment. How do you do that? We don't want our teachers, we don't want our kids to handle anything that is disinfectant. That's for our custodial staff that we want. However, teachers and students can't help with the cleaning. So what might that look like? Well, if you consider a baby wipe, and we give kids baby wipes, and they're just, before they leave, they just wipe down their desk. And if we give a baby wipe to a teacher and say, can you just wipe down your desk? That way, when the custodian comes in and does the disinfecting of the entire classroom, the first layer is gone. So maybe that might be something, how we handle this together, because the more time that the custodian or our maintenance workers have to do the disinfecting by not having to focus as heavily on the cleaning, the better disinfected the environments will be. So that are some of the things that we're looking to be doing. Next slide, please. The LA County Department of Public Health released their guidelines on Monday, like I mentioned. And how do we get 350 kids and 400 kids in? Well, as I mentioned before, whenever we start bringing kids in, we're going to have to split them up into cohorts. So if you had a school of 350 or 400, now it's a school of 200. But you can't all, if you're, for example, Aeolian, Rancho, the middle school, Nelson, all have a single point of entry. I can't have everyone coming in all at once. We can't clamor. So we have to put in protocols to make sure either we stagger how kids come in, how we have them come in different spots. When they come in, we have to make sure that they're healthy. Did we take their temperature? Has parents verified that they took their temperature, that they haven't experienced any flu-like symptoms, that they have not been exposed to any COVID-19 positive people? And all of those things are things that we have to put in place. So as we take a look about entry and exits, how do we get our kids out safely? How do we get them in safely? You know, up into including not even having kids congregate into the cafeteria. I'm so proud of our Healthy Los Nietos program and the fact that we have salad bars at all of our campuses. And the days of our salad bars are gone. You can't have open salad bars like that. Everything will be prepackaged. So when we start coming back on our hybrid model, I anticipate bagging up the food, giving it to the kids on their way home. We would want them to eat in the cafeteria where there's so many people. Okay, next slide, please. Again, this a little bit about the guidelines that we need to follow. Again, as much as we are following educational and academic guidelines by the state and California Department of Education and LACO, we are beholden, as we should be during a pandemic, to the guidelines given to us by the LA County Department of Public Health. What are those guidelines? Make sure that we have extra hand sanitizing units, and we did that previously. All of the sanitizing units or soap is hospital grade in all of our classrooms to begin with, number one. Frequent hand washing, washing your hands before you go to the restroom. Make sure you wash your hands when they come back, squirting some Purell or some hand sanitizer on their hands when they get back. Numerous types of things are protocols we'd have to put in place. Already here at the district office, we have digital thermometers, so people will come around and check everyone's temperature to see where we're at. As you go out more and more into the world, you will see people will not allow you to come in unless they take your temperature. They squirt your hand with some hand sanitizer. They maintain their social distancing. That is what's going out in the real world. Why would we not expect that would need to happen in our schools with our kids? So again, we're going to be following the recommendations of LA Department of Public Health. And for those parents who are concerned or staff members concerned, well, what if someone tests positive? How many people, how are we going to notify? There are protocols that are put in place by the Department of Public Health. 3 is the magic number. If there are 3 cases of COVID-19 positive cases within a school, we are to alert public health. Public health will assign us a health caseworker. Our job as educators is to make a list of, saying, thank you, Mrs. Garcia, for letting us know that your son or your family is tested positive. Who are the other people that your kids have been around? We have to compile that list of numbers, give it to public health so they can do the contact tracing. That is their job. That is their responsibility. Our job is to provide them the information. So again, the intent is to work collaboratively, to trust one another. Everyone has anxiety and fear about coming back and what if we get sick. So as long as the protocols are in place, as long as we work hand in hand closely together with respect and with the awareness that we're all doing this so that we can try and get back to as much as normal as possible, then honestly we'll be fine, because I know that the parents want the kids to come back. The teachers truly miss their kids and want them to come back. And at the end of the day, when kids are here and I hear them laughing and smiling and running around, it makes us all happy. And it's been very sad because we have not seen that. So that is the normal we want to get back to. Next slide, please. So here's some of the things that we've been working on. So when you come into the front office, this is Aeolian School. Our maintenance department are outstanding craftsmen. Here are things that they built themselves for all of our 4 schools. Plexiglass. They've also been working on plexiglass shields that would go to around district office staff desks. And we're looking at, do we want to put in maybe a trifold plexiglass with students when they come back and sit? It's not required, but that's something maybe we want to look into, and that's what we're doing. So our excellent and outstanding industrious maintenance staff have been working very hard. And so that was one of the things that they produced. Next slide, please. That is our awesome superintendent or board president. But again, as we wind this up in terms of some of our big takeaways from tonight before we get to the questions. The big takeaways from tonight, do we want your kids to come back? Yes. Do you want your kids to come back? Yes. You can't sugarcoat it. And I oftentimes use this analogy. You can't be a little pregnant. You either are or you aren't. And we can't be a little pandemic. This is a big pandemic. It hasn't changed. It's gotten worse since March. And the reality is, until it stops, it's not safe to bring folks back to school in the way that we want to, okay? So again, the intent of tonight, before we open it up to question, is just to assure our parents, we hear you, we want to work with you, we know that you need support. You are not educators, but your kids are going to be home and you need us to help you, and we're prepared to do that. We want to assure you that the guidelines that we are following are not Los Nietos make-believe guidelines. They are guidelines that are from the California Department of Public Health, Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. The guidelines and the attendance protocols and the accountability protocols that we have to put in place are mandates from the state. We all have to do these things. So when you say, Mr. Vasquez, are you going to, what if my student doesn't show up? Are you going to just forget about them? Are you going to lose us? We can't. There's new laws out there that shows here the protocols, and we'll be sharing that with parents. So again, we've gotten to a good portion of information and content. Before we get to questions, I don't know how Maritza would possibly be able to summarize anything, but I do want to give her an opportunity before we get into the questions. What might you want to say with what I said, Maritza?
Nada más queremos recordarle a todos los padres de familia que toda esta información está disponible en nuestra página web del Distrito Escolar en español. Todas las preguntas de esta noche también serán traducidas en español y las va a poder encontrar en la página web. Si usted tiene alguna pregunta, otra preocupación acerca de la escuela virtual, por favor llámenos. Queremos que usted sepa que estamos disponibles, y si tiene alguna pregunta, alguna preocupación, nosotros estamos aquí para ayudarles. Toda la información que estamos dando esta noche sigue todos los protocolos del Departamento de Salud Pública del Condado de Los Ángeles, y es así que por eso hemos decidido mantener las escuelas cerradas y todas las lecciones y toda la escuela será virtual, como le dije hace rato, a partir de agosto 13 hasta finales de diciembre. Gracias.
We will now begin the Q&A portion of this evening. We've asked our community to submit questions they'd like to have answered during this town hall. For those submitting questions on the Facebook comment section, we will be sure to address those and publish the answers on the district website, www.lnsd.net. We will now begin. My son is in a special education pre-K class. How will the reopening plan accommodate kids with special needs?
As I mentioned before, we'll be having a separate town hall meeting similar to this, just for our special needs is individual and has specific needs. If they were in a regular full-time school environment, this COVID-19 has created additional stressors on the kids, on the families that need to be addressed. As I mentioned before, we were hoping to have the IEPs face-to-face in the fall, when we said, we'll do the IEPs and then we'll do the face-to-face, but we'll be working very diligently to start scheduling IEP meetings with all of our parents to discuss the needs of the students, as well as the needs, any changes that COVID-19 might present. Each IEP already has accommodations and modifications necessary to be successful in a school environment. But again, as I mentioned, having a conversation with parents about what particular needs might they be facing with this COVID-19 environment is something that we'll be addressing.
How is the district going to accommodate online learning for children with working parents? Will there be different times offered for virtual classes and meetings with teachers for families in this situation?
As much as possible, we're trying to mirror what a normal school day would be, which would be 8 to 2:30. That being said, the new normal is virtual learning. One of the things and the takeaways that we got from our parent surveys and staff surveys at the end of last school year, when we took surveys in May and June, is that parents wanted to participate more. They weren't sure how. That parents wanted their kids to be more engaged, and sometimes it was hard for them to get motivated to come to a Zoom class when they could just stay in bed, possibly. So part of what we need to do is say, how can we really help support our parents? What are your needs? And we're going to have to do something and do some things differently than we've ever done before. Really reaching out and engaging with our parents specifically, much like I talked about our special needs students and with their IEPs. We need to have individual conversations with our parents. How are you doing? Many of you have not even talked to a school district employee in the last 5 months, and many of you have questions. You just want reassurance that your students and your kids are going to be okay. I think that's something that we want to provide to you. And as much as possible, try and augment our distance learning program with videos, with things that are online. Explain a little bit how our instructional program will be learning, so the parents understand what teachers will be doing. That way, if they have specific questions about what's being conducted, parents they can email their teachers. We're trying to build in on that virtual day Monday, opportunities where teachers can really engage with parents, check emails, make phone calls, and give that contact that the parents need as much as what the students need.
As a working parent myself, it's going to be challenging. And that's why we're letting all of our families know now that we are going to be doing distance learning starting in August, so that you can start preparing for that transition. And also just keep in mind, like Mr. Vasquez mentioned, you will have an opportunity to connect with the teachers, and it will be your perfect opportunity to share some of these concerns with the teacher and hopefully be able to work something out with your working schedule.
Will the cleaning and disinfecting procedures and schedules be in accordance with CDC recommendations?
Yeah, but they will. And again, what we're really looking at is all of the guidelines pretty much follows similar guidelines. The California Department of Education guidelines that came out are very similar to CDC guidelines, which are very similar to the LA County Department of Public Health guidelines. What are those guidelines? Well, if you're going to use disinfectants, make sure they're approved by the CDC on the CDC website to kill the COVID-19. And all of our products do that. If people are going to be disinfecting the classrooms, make sure that they have the appropriate PPE equipment, gloves, masks, goggles, so that they're protected, and they will. And as I mentioned earlier, students and teachers can help with cleaning. And again, if you consider a baby wipe as something that you would use on your baby, yeah, it can also wipe off a desk. That's all I would want people to do. The custodians are the ones who have gone through training and have the capabilities to come in. We've gotten disinfectant misters as a way to help speed up the disinfecting. So after things are cleaned, and we wipe down all the high frequency touch points, the doorknobs, the drinking fountains, things like that. We mist the classrooms one final time and just let it set and evaporate. That's the best way to disinfect and let the cleaning take place, and we will do that.
How will the district handle when a student or staff member has been exposed to someone with COVID-19? In what manner and how soon will the district notify the rest of the families whose students might have been in contact with that person?
Again, the protocols for the that were released on Monday by the LA County Department of Public Health describe a lot of what is required by school districts um, in order to safely reopen schools. As I mentioned before, 3 is the magic number where the Department of Public Health would require a public health caseworker to be assigned to a school to manage the situation. We'll be providing the links to the LA County Department of Public Health guidelines. It's about a 17-page guideline, but there's a lot of protocols. So as it was just released on Monday, we are looking at it. We'll be completing it and filling it out, and then we'll be sharing it with the parents. But the intent is the guidelines are in place. We are going to comply with them. We'll share them with our employees. We'll share them with our parents. Because again, with HIPAA laws, we don't want to, we have to balance. How do we maintain people's privacy with the safety of our students and with other members of the staff? So it's a balancing act. But as long as we all realize that if I were to ask someone, that they have no fear of telling myself or the school clerk, the health clerk, or the principal that they test positive, just so that we can ensure the safety for all the community. We all want our kids back. We all want it to be safe, but we also have kind of a fear. We don't know who and where and who you've been in contact with. Adults don't know. The teachers don't know. So the staff. So everyone has the same anxiety. So as long as I can be as upfront and forthright about what our protocols are, hopefully parents will have a level of respect, teachers and employees will have a level of respect that it's not that I'm trying to pry into people's personal business, but in the midst of a pandemic, we need to really share information in order to keep everyone safe.
What considerations and accommodations will the district provide students who might have a health condition that puts them at a greater risk for developing complications from COVID-19?
Again, one of the things we're looking at, although we're making the recommendation to go to 100% distance learning from August through December, distance learning will be something that will be offered to all of our students throughout the year. Say, miracle upon miracles, things subside, a vaccine comes out, we're able to start bringing our kids back. If there are those parents who still have concerns, or they are medically fragile, or perhaps some people are saying, I have asthma, I have concern if COVID-19 affects your respiratory system, I don't want to take that risk, then we'll work with parents. The intent is we'll share information with you. It's a case-by-case basis, as it is with adults. Many adults, employees of mine, said, Mr. Vasquez, here are the concerns that I have. I may be at risk. What are the things that you can do, or how might I navigate this? And it's a case-by-case. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. So there are things that I can say to our employees, here's what is required, here's what the district can cover. And then if there are specific examples or specific issues that are just to you, then again, they can come talk to me individually, as parents can talk to their principal individually about their concerns with their child's health issues.
How will you implement social distancing in the elementary classrooms, since younger children might have more difficulty in practicing social distancing and wearing face masks?
100%. Little kids will have difficulty. And again, I was a principal for 7 years. Part of the beauty of little kids is they're very tactile. They want hugs. They want to know that adults are happy to see them. And that is a no-no in a pandemic. So again, it's through a lot of education to our parents to say, when we bring you back, it's not that teachers don't want to hug kids. It's not that we don't want, kids to be friends. I remember kids learning how to go to the lunch line. They would hold hands down the aisle as they went to the cafeteria. None of that is permissible. Hugging is not permissible. So much the 6 feet. So again, I showed you the almost industrial level of what classrooms would look like in rows. And we worked so hard to get and break that model where we wanted to bring our kids together. We wanted them to talk. We wanted them to work collaboratively, because that's a more important skill. And now we're back to kind of this industrial model in order to keep kids safe. But through education, through talking to our kids, through talking to our parents, explaining, and finding different ways to show affection or show that we approve or that we motivate kids in different ways. That's what we have to do. So that's one of the things that the district will be providing to our teachers, knowing that we're going to go 100% virtual, knowing that we need to motivate them to be there. What are the things that we need to do differently and really care about their social emotional well-being, because that is something that is really going to be important for us to focus on during the midst of the pandemic.
We also talked about putting tape on the floor and the children's desk so we can, like Mr. Vasquez mentioned, we can educate them and teach them that that is their space and that unfortunately they can't leave their space. It has to do a lot with the teacher and the parent support. So we're definitely going to work with our parents to ensure that our little ones stay in their space and wear their masks.
With regards to face masks, again, I would buy a face mask. I had to go through a video on how to appropriately put on a face mask, pinch it, but try with your kids to kind of build up their endurance wearing a face mask. And it's the more that they feel comfortable with it, the easier it is to go outside, the easier it would be to transition into the school. But if you don't have them wear or practice, it's kind of like reading. If you don't read and build up your skills, it makes it more difficult. And a skill that the kids are going to need, unfortunately, is how to wear protective gear, how to ensure that they wash their hands for at least 20 seconds, make sure they get in between the fingers, and how to have Purell or hand sanitizers all the time. It just needs to be automatic. So anything that parents can do to help build and to develop those skills while they're at home only helps us to maintain the social distancing and maintain the protective health protocols that we have to implement.
Will a daily health check be implemented at the beginning of the school day?
It will. And one of the things we're piloting, just like when those of you who remember before we had buzzers at the door, you didn't used to have that. And then we said, hey, we need to worry about the safety of our parents and students. So now at the district office, at all four of the schools, you have to be buzzed to get in. One of the things we're piloting here at the district office is digital scanners. So as kids and adults walk in to take their temperature, as you know, digital thermometers are good. We're trying to scan 400 kids, or trying to have parents, certify that they scanned their child before they left. Yes, they're good to go. Makes it kind of difficult. Worst case scenario, if we needed to do something, I could get a digital thermometer for every teacher, and just like a learning protocol, the different wash their hands, squirt, squirt, squirt. Here's your hand sanitizer. Let's take your temperature. And what we're looking for is anything above 100. We're looking for flu-like symptoms. If anyone would have those levels of symptoms, our job is to immediately put a mask on them, take them up to the health clerk's office or a quarantine area, call their parents, notify them. So those are the protocols that are put in place per LA Department of Public Health guidelines. But within the next week or two, we're piloting the temperature checks here so we can do it faster. Otherwise, again, it's a digital thermometer checking everybody and the adults as well. So that's for the adults and the staff watching. That will have to be a protocol as well, that when you come to school, either you verify that, yes, I took my temperature, or we have someone verify it, or like we said with digital scanners, we have you walk through something to ensure that your health is okay.
Will my daughter be able to receive an IEP?
Yes, you will. So again, by law, we are mandated to provide the services that are outlined in your individual education plan. None of us thought that IEPs would be, we'd have to implement IEPs during a pandemic, and it's provided a lot of challenges, to be honest with you. That being said, it's incumbent upon us as the administration and the district office staff and the principals and the administration there and teachers to figure out how can we work with parents to ensure that you understand how we're providing services, and we understand from you what your concerns are with regards to that. So yes, you will still be able to have those services being offered.
Will parents have the option to select a hybrid learning environment or a full-time distance learning schedule for our children? If so, will there be an option to switch to the other learning environment if we decide one is not working for our child?
Well, you'll have an opportunity to think about it, definitely, because you have, as I mentioned earlier, Although we have 4 stages of reopening: 1, 100% distance; 2, hybrid, where it's a half-day model; 3, hybrid model, where it's a full-day model; and then 4, all the kids come back to school. Hopefully, the intent would be, as we build that hybrid model in and kids have the interaction, um, you know, that's the model that we would stick as we build their endurance with the COVID-19 pandemic, flattening of the curve. Then we'll be able to do more in-class instruction, and that's really what we want. We are not designed to do the virtual learning. We can do it, we want to do it, but the best way to have kids learn is to have them in the classrooms. But unfortunately, during the pandemic, we can't. So we are getting much better, and the program that we'll be offering to our parents, to our kids, much different than what it was during March through June 3rd. And again, we're going to ensure that the program, the quality that you want and expect from a school, is what you receive here in Los Nietos.
And just as a reminder, we are going to reevaluate this at the end of December, early January. It goes hand in hand with the LA County Department of Public Health. And at that point, then we can determine whether we're going to be able to move into phase 2 or phase 3. And at that point, we'll also obviously get some feedback from our parents, and you'll have an opportunity to decide whether you want your child to continue in distance learning or be able to join in a hybrid model.
Will there be a full-time distance learning option for households with high-risk individuals?
Absolutely. So again, as we go through a distance learning model through December, and as board president mentioned, we're going to be, if we have the ability and if things start flattening and we say, hey, we'd like to bring our kids back sooner, we can do that. We want to do that. But just for planning purposes, I got many emails from parents. Mr. Vasquez, I'm a working parent. I need to know what's childcare going to be like if I need to do something different. So I just wanted, the board wanted to say to our parents, this is what it's going to look like. And as I mentioned earlier, I anticipate by the end of this month, all school districts in Los Angeles County moving to this model, if not across the state.
Will social emotional support be implemented into the curriculum?
It will 100% be implemented. And that's one of the things prior to school starting, there's 2 days of professional development. And one of the things that I want to do for our teachers is to build in the capability and the capacity to work with our students. When we did surveys at the end of the school year, one of the things that was missing is just, we're so focused on the academics, and oh my gosh, we really need to push that because we only have the kids on Zoom for so much time, that the social emotional aspect of being at home, being isolated from their peers, having difficulty, really maybe not even getting into how are you doing, how's your family, was not built in. And that's a missing piece that has to be built in. We as educators care about kids. That's why we all went into this business. We like working with students. We want to help families be successful. We want all our kids to have the opportunities that we ourselves had or are blessed with, to go to college and to be and do what we want to do. We want to afford you those opportunities. We can only do that if we take the whole child into perspective and say, in addition to this academic, how are you doing? How's your family? Maybe some of you have lost their jobs. Maybe you're in the service industry, and as things have started closing up again, and it's really back and forth and it's hard. We ourselves as educators need to be empathic and to show empathy to our students and to our families and let them know that we are with you, we support you. And in addition to providing academic education, we want to provide you the emotional support that you need. So we've been working with all of our school psychologists, there's 4 of them in our district, to take a look at different kind of curriculum, very brief, that we just start the day. Maybe it's as small as in a community circle or in the beginning of your Zoom lesson. Let's check in with each other. How are you? What's going on? What's new in your life? You want to share something? Things that we learned in kindergarten. If you think about that, how to share, how to be nice, how to smile, all those things that we take for granted as adults, as we take for granted as we get older. Those are the things we need to get back to so that our kids have a bit of normalcy in their lives. So that's, yes, we do want to focus on the social emotional aspects of how best to support our kids.
Will the number of health clerics, nurses, and school psychologists on site increase?
Currently, right now, we have 4 health clerks, 1 at each school site. We have 2 school psychologists within the district, two others at Los Nietos Middle School. And what we're trying to do is how can we provide, again, support to our teachers to better support our kids. One of the things you may not know, and some of you may know, all of our students who have gotten Chromebooks also have software on it. And so we get alerts if kids are looking at sites. Maybe they're bored, maybe they're not. Maybe they're looking at I'm depressed or I'm suicidal. We get alerts and we have our school psychologists check and call parents and say, just want to check, want to let you know that your child's computer was flagged as they were looking at the site. Are they okay? And we do assessments. So that's a significant kind of check-in with our kids. But again, I think what our school psychologists can do is to have access to the teachers as much as our teachers on special assignment provide access to instructional strategies. Our school psychologists need to pivot and be perceived as providing that social emotional support to our teachers so they can better support our kids during this pandemic.
How will the reopening plan affect the middle school since students typically visit different teachers for certain subjects?
Middle school provides several different challenges. And again, we've looked at different types of things in terms of maybe you have the kids stay in one class and it's the teachers that move. That's a possibility in order to stop social distancing. And so then you have teachers sharing spaces, and that's becomes of concern to teachers who may be sharing their spaces even though the kids don't move. So we're working very closely with our principal, Ms. Branzelaya, and to develop how best do we bring our kids back. Again, it's going to be a half-day model when we get back to that model. But again, right now it's 100% distance. So one of the things at the time that we have is to really engage our stakeholders. And although we've had a task force group comprised of classified staff, teachers, administrators, parents over the past summer, we've not really had the opportunity to engage with our teachers. So school starts very shortly. We have time to engage with them. And now that we know that we're in distance learning mode, now we can have a more fruitful conversation with all our staff about how best can we do this. But again, from August through December, we are looking at 100% virtual distance learning option for all of our kids, elementary and middle.
And for the, just really quick, I want to add that for the middle school, the distance learning will include all the teachers. So for example, if they have 3 teachers, which is one for maybe math and science, and the other one is for language arts and history and the PE, they will actually hear or connect with all of their teachers, and they will be able to do virtual or distance learning with all their teachers.
Including PE. So again, that's going to be interesting. We have 2 excellent PE teachers at the middle school, and making sure that they get their minutes in. And it may be, here is a video that you can watch as you do yoga and you do your calisthenics and your exercise or run in place or go outside. We want to ensure that they get their physical activity in a safe, socially distant kind of manner while they're at home as well.
If there are COVID-19 cases identified in the school after reopening, will the school move all students over to a full-time distance learning schedule?
If we were to come back in a hybrid model and in January-ish, let's say, and once we're doing that, there was more than the 3 cases, and yes, we had to move to a model where we said it's not safe, 100% we would move back to a distance learning model. So although the state may be at some point reduce restrictions with regards to how cases are monitored, individual schools may be different. So again, currently right now, things are tightening and closing. It's being perceived that California opened up too quickly. And that's why the cases have been exploding. And again, our county where our kids go to school, LA County is a county to watch within the state as the COVID-19 cases are running rampant. And Mayor Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles, has been dropping hints. We may need to close down. We may need to close down. Tomorrow, Governor Newsom will be making a statement because school districts and superintendents have been pressuring the governor to say, I need for you to make a more concise and a statement as opposed to leaving it up to each individual school district to decide how best to do this. We want our public health officials to make the call. But based on the information that I have and after a close consultation with the Los Nietos School Board, we've all come to the same conclusion. The pandemic is not subsided. It's moving forward, and to bring kids back to school during this environment is not something any of us would want to do at this time.
What will the process be for children to enter school without congregating at the front entrance?
Again, as I mentioned before, part of the LA County Department of Public Health guidelines that were released on Monday have specific entrance and exits. We could be staggering start times. We could be staggering release times. So prior to doing that, we will share the information with parents, and it's going to be very imperative that parents know that if we have a staggered time for you to come get your kids, that you have to be there. Sometimes I understand, I live in Corona, so sometimes the traffic is horrific, either coming to work or leaving to get home, and you work in downtown LA as well. It's difficult. But if we have kids that are around that aren't getting picked up in time, it makes it difficult because we want to do this in a very orderly, methodical way to ensure that everyone's safety is there. So for our part, principals are working to come up with individual protocols for their site, share it with their teachers so they know where they're to be, dismissing and exiting their kids. And then we will make sure that we share that appropriately with parents so they have enough time to understand it, because it'll all be brand new. And the last thing I want to do is frustrate people. Those of you who've been in parking lot lines on a good day know how frustrating it is to wait and you can't find a student and tempers flare. We can't have that at all. With all of these new protocols, we have to work together. We have to be respectful. And I know that we can do that, but again, it's going to require a lot of all of us having an understanding that in order for our kids to come back safely and to stay in school, there's specific protocols that are mandated that we have to follow. So as we develop those protocols based on Department of Public Health guidelines, we will be releasing that and sharing that with parents.
And for our last question, how does LNSD plan on assisting the families who prefer virtual learning over on-campus learning for their children?
Again, honesty, transparency, and that's why we're having this town hall meeting. My thought when we planned this has been in the works for several weeks, and say, I want to be able to talk to parents and say, we're bringing your kids back, and this is kind of it, but we're going to do baby steps, and the baby steps we're going to do is bring your kids back for half days on this cohort model, and then we'll do virtual, and then as we work towards bringing them back full time. So the best way that I can help parents understand what their options are is to be honest. I have to follow the science, and as crazy as that sounds, why would we not follow the science during the pandemic? And it's not getting any better. It is not subsiding. LA County, again, I keep saying these things, but I want you to know this is why we're making these recommendations, is on a county to watch, as you know, very closely getting ready to shut down entirely. So we have to do our part. And my intent is to be as transparent as possible. I've never done a town hall meeting like this before. I have to learn new skills to communicate to parents. And that's my growth as a superintendent of the school district. Find ways to reach out to our parents, to our students, to our staff, to share with them transparently. Here's what's going on. And in order to ensure that everyone remains safe and healthy, give you the most up-to-date information as possible. So that's the best that I can do. And that's, what I want to do while, we're working here.
I just want to add that we want you all to please keep in mind that all the actions we take and all the decisions we make are all based on the LA County Department of Public Health guidelines. And once students are ready to come back to school, again, it will just be based on those guidelines, not on just district guidelines alone.
This concludes the Q&A portion of this town hall. At this time, we will have Mr. Vasquez and Mrs. Nieves provide closing remarks.
First of all, I want to thank all the participants who showed up tonight on a Thursday night. Whether you are parents, whether you are staff members, I appreciate you taking the time to find out about your school district, to find about what the needs are of the community. Los Nietos School District prides itself on being a community school district. Not only are we trying to educate the kids in the school district, we're also trying to provide information to our parents to help them understand what their rights are, what their needs are. And by working with the city councils in Santa Fe Springs and Whittier, by working with the LA County Department, or excuse me, the LA County Board of Supervisors, 4th District, Supervisor Hahn's office, we try and bring the resources here. And so thank you for being here tonight. Um, we keep saying this is unprecedented times, and you say it so many times that it loses its meaning, but I will say it again. Every time I come to work and every time I think that we have this figured out, literally things change. I want to thank my staff, Assistant Superintendent Gideon, Assistant Superintendent McMasters, Director Tan, my principals, who have been outstanding stewards and leaders at their school sites, having to hold hands of parents and hold hands of staff during this incredible time. They've all shown incredible courage and leadership, and they have made my job easier by having that strength that we all need. So again, as I've mentioned many times, I started my career in 1991 here in this district. I'm going on 30 years, 12 years as superintendent. My commitment to this community is to provide educational opportunities to your students so they have opportunities to do what they want to do. The teachers, the educators, the staff in this district are committed to working with you, to partnering with you so that your kids can achieve the goals and the dreams that they want to achieve. So as we go through this pandemic, as we navigate these uncharted waters together, we're here for you. We're here with you, and we appreciate your support with us and knowing that we are trying to do our very best, not only to help your students, but also to help you manage through these difficult times. Thank you.
And I just want to add really quick, I'll be brief, but I want to thank you all again very much for tuning in and listening to this very important information. We appreciate your support. We appreciate your patience. That's also very important. And most importantly, thank you for being just our number one supporters really for us and for your students. I want to thank Jonathan and his cabinet for doing a fantastic job during these last few months. We can't tell you enough how much they've done for us, for your students as well. So thank you so much. Para todos nuestros padres de familia, le queremos dar gracias. Gracias por asistir a esa presentación. Gracias por su paciencia. Eso es lo más importante, sinceramente. Y le quiero dar gracias al superintendente y a todos los empleados de nuestro distrito, que sinceramente sus últimos meses han sido muy diferentes y difíciles, pero sea lo que sea, siempre han permanecido muy positivos y siempre tratando de ofrecer los mejores recursos para usted y para sus estudiantes. Así que muchísimas gracias y que pasen muy buenas noches.
Mr. Vasquez and Mrs. Nieves, this concludes our virtual town hall. We'd like to remind you that enrollment is now open and you may register by visiting the district webpage, www.lnsd.net. We thank you all for joining us and being part of this conversation. Have a good night.